news. The daughter of a double murderer who says police failed her.
I want answers now.
Her statement in full is hard to watch now the authorities have responded. A game of OzTag descends into violence. What sparked the sickening attack? The search for a mystery mother after a disturbing Riverside discovery. Our Foreign Minister responds as more airstrikes hit Rafah. The staggering data revealing why the housing crisis will worsen. The myth young people are falling for that could have deadly consequences. We reveal what gut health has to do with Parkinson's disease. A classic Aussie dish with a side of endangered species. What's really going on in your fish and chips? And why these fishermen will leave this trip with quite the shark tale to tell. And the Maroons make their annual pit stop for pies. Trust me when I say they are really good pies.
Welcome to 10's Late News with Ursula Heger.
Good evening. First tonight, we hear from the daughter of a double murderer. Mark Bombara shot Jenny Patelchek and her teenage daughter Gretel dead inside their Perth home on Friday. He then shot himself. Jenny and Gretel were simply trying to protect the lives of Mark's ex-wife and his daughter Ariel and help them escape. Ariel has today bravely made a statement saying she and her mum have been repeatedly let down by police, left at the mercy of an abusive gun owner. We have left Ariel's statement in full. We think it is important that she be heard and that authorities answer her questions.
I'd like to start by saying how truly, deeply sorry I am to Liesl Patelchis for the loss of her beautiful mother Jenny and her sister Gretel. Losses she has suffered at the hands of my father's violence. My mother and I fled our family home on March 28 in fear of our lives and to remove ourselves from an abusive situation. Between March 30th and April 2nd, I spoke with police on 3 separate occasions to raise the alarm about my father. On each occasion, I alerted officers to my father's guns and told them my mother and I felt there was a real and imminent threat to our lives. I specifically mentioned that there was a Glock handgun which was unaccounted for. My understanding is this ultimately would be one of the weapons that my father used to take the lives of 2 innocent women. I also asked the police if we would be able to take out a 72-hour temporary protective order. We were told no and that there was nothing police could do about the situation at the time. On April 2nd, my mother and I were given a police escort to our home to collect some belongings. This was the 3rd occasion we warned police about my father's guns. An officer said, "Oh, don't worry, we know all about the guns." And when he called for backup, he warned his fellow officers to wear bulletproof vests. We were ignored by 5 different male officers across 3 occasions of reporting. By that point, we felt completely helpless and I had to focus on getting Mum to safety. I did everything I could to protect my mother, and when my father couldn't find us, he murdered her best friend and her best friend's daughter. The gun reforms being discussed currently are an important step, but it is my unwavering belief that even without his guns, my father would have committed a horrific act of violence which likely would have claimed lives. What my father did was an act of domestic violence. My mother and I made it clear that lives were at risk and we were repeatedly ignored, repeatedly failed. These failures have cost the lives of 2 incredible women. My father should always be considered accountable for his actions. They were his actions and his alone. However, there are authorities who should have helped us to stop him and they failed. I want answers now.
WA's Police Commissioner says he has read Ariel's statement. He addressed the media a little earlier. Here's some of what he had to say.
Ariel's statement concerns me greatly. I want to make sure that every domestic violence victim in Western Australia gets an appropriate response. I'm committed to that outcome. I have asked that our internal investigations unit conduct an investigation into the 3 interactions that Ariel speaks of with our police officers.
How long that investigation will take, Commissioner Blanche could not say. And if you or someone you know is a victim of domestic violence, there is support. Call the 24-hour hotline 1800-RESPECT. That's 1800 737 732. Now to a horrific assault that's been captured on camera at an OzTag game in Sydney's inner city. 2 players ganged up on one, punching him in the face before kicking him as he lay unconscious on the ground. One can be heard screaming, "Who wants it?" The 38-year-old victim was left with a broken jaw after the assault, which was apparently sparked after an on-field penalty on Monday night. The men had left by the time police arrived and investigations continue, but OzTag Australia has already said the attackers will be banned from playing. A placenta and umbilical cord found on the banks of Sydney's Cooks River has been sent for testing as police urge a mystery mother to come forward. There's been no sign of her or her newborn since yesterday, disturbing discovery.
It's a mystery still deepening. What happened to the mother believed to have given birth on these banks, and where is her baby? Police continue to search after Tony Robson discovered a placenta and an umbilical cord yesterday afternoon.
My wife and I were just sort of discussing, is it what we think it is? And couldn't really come up with any other, scenario as to what it could be. So, within the first couple of minutes, we better call the police.
Detectives, police divers and a blood detection dog have scoured the water and around the muddy roots of the mangroves here. At one point, they thought they'd found something.
We have located an area that we need to do further forensic examination.
But there's been no further trace of the mum or baby, as worry for them both only grows.
I am deeply concerned for the safety and the mental health of the mother, and also for the safety of her baby.
Forensic pathologists are doing tests on the placenta and the umbilical cord to try and work out how long they may have been on the riverbank. Police also hope these results might provide other clues as to identifying the mother and her baby. Until then, they hold on to hope she'll come forward.
You're not in trouble. You don't have to talk to the police. The only thing I ask that you do is make your way to one of our hospitals so that we can care for you and your baby.
Samara Gardner for 10 News First.
The Palestinian city of Rafah is tonight under heavy bombardment, with reports 16 more people have been killed. It comes just days after a bombing in a displacement camp killed at least 45 people, including several children. The attack has prompted outrage across the globe, with the UK's Foreign Minister demanding a swift, comprehensive and transparent investigation. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has called it a tragic mistake. And the attack has mobilised people around the world in support of Palestine. In Sydney, dozens of people turned out at a town hall rally in the last few hours, while earlier today violent clashes broke out between police and protesters in Paris. Network political editor Ashley Raper joins me now. And Ash, how is the Albanese government responding to the bombing in Rafah?
Ursula, the government was a bit slow out of the gates on the latest events in Rafah. The Prime Minister took an opportunity in Parliament today to address it and said his government has consistently opposed the ground offensive in Rafah and expressed his concern. It followed a short statement put out on social media by the Foreign Minister, Penny Wong, which said Israel's strikes have had horrific and unacceptable consequences, and said Australia has been very clear that Israel must not proceed with its operation in Rafah. Since the conflict, we have seen a strengthening in the government's position towards Israel. It's been subtle, but it's happened. But recently, the government's appeared to be very conscious of internal party turmoil over this that's also been reflected in the community, and it's also being attacked by both sides of Parliament, from the Coalition and the Greens, on its position.
Well, and at home, the government's under pressure over its handling of released detainees.
The pressure on the Immigration Minister just keeps growing and growing and growing. The latest is that visas that had been cancelled were then reinstated because they had been before an independent tribunal. And I must point out that they had been cancelled because they'd committed a crime. So then when they were reinstated, these particular people then went on to commit another heinous crime. Why there's pressure on the government is that there was a change last year. It's called Direction 99 that allowed some people to be spared deportation because they had ties to Australia. Now, there are a few cases that have been highlighted by the coalition today, which reflects that. Now, this is the latest in a number of debacles that have happened under the Immigration Minister's watch. But also, what has happened and his problem has been how he's handled it publicly when these debacles have happened. And more often than not, he is nowhere to be seen. It is amazing that there hasn't been more pressure on him internally up until this point for him to lose his job. But by now, Ursula, the Prime Minister, has to be considering whether his Immigration Minister is up to the task and should remain in the job.
Sounds like there's more to come. Thank you, Ash. Well, could the answer to Parkinson's disease be found in the gut, specifically gut health? That's what Queensland scientists are now researching after studies showed differences in the gut ecosystems of Parkinson's patients compared to that of healthy people. And the US Department of Defence has given $4 million towards the trial, with the military personnel considered to be at higher risk of neurological conditions due to their exposure to chemicals. The link was first made in the 1800s by the man who defined the disease, James Parkinson.
We compare the blood, the urine samples and the fecal samples. So that gives us a whole picture of what's coming out of the gut that's entering the blood and then heading to the brain.
70 people are needed for the trial, which begins in September. North Korea's latest attempt to launch a military satellite has gone up in flames, with cameras capturing the moment that the rocket exploded. It's the third failed attempt by the hermit state to put a spy satellite into space and has drawn criticism from South Korea, who called it a provocative act. This comes as the West grows increasingly concerned about the relationship between Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un, with experts believing that Russia is helping North Korea develop its space program. A 5-metre great white has left fishers stunned as it circled their boat off the New South Wales coast. Friends spotted the grey figure emerging from the deep and slowly approaching the vessel. The shark joined their fishing expedition for about an hour and it was fortunate enough to be fed one of the group's catches. The men described the experience as petrifying but thrilling. I wouldn't say thrilling. Well, stay with us. Up next on 10's Late News. The dangerous TikTok trend that has experts worried. Is there something fishy hidden in your meal? The endangered species lurking in the catch of the day. And a very rare sight, what caused this second cloud fall in a matter of weeks. The housing crisis is a complex and challenging issue that's having a real-world impact for thousands of Aussies. The reason why is actually pretty simple. Property prices are high despite high interest rates. Rents are high and getting higher. And that's a big part of the fact that there aren't simply enough homes to go around. Without wishing to be the bearer of bad news, it's been revealed tonight that this is about to get worse. New research from KPMG shows there are 37,000 dwellings in Australia that are approved, but building hasn't started yet. Almost 80% of those are at the more affordable end, apartments and townhouses. The properties sit in the lag between housing being approved and building starting. But that number is abnormally high, making it even harder to buy or rent a property. Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane are worst off, with the numbers of stalled homes much higher than this time last year. Adelaide and Perth are actually doing better than previously. But the ACT is having a shocker, 63% worse off than this time last year. There are some positive signs. Here on the Late News, we like to be glass half full. Experts say that construction costs are starting to stabilise and developers should be soon pushing ahead with more projects. There are fears tonight that young Aussies are being negatively influenced by social media when it comes to sun safety. A new survey in the US has revealed the dangerous misinformation about sunscreen and skin cancer, which some are taking as gospel.
Growing up in Australia sounded a little like this.
Slip, slop, slap, seek and slide.
But elsewhere, the message isn't sinking in. And in the US, an alarming trend has surfaced.
Sunscreen is a scam.
I'm not going to wear sunscreen this summer, and neither should you.
Influencers claiming sunscreen is bad for you. Dangerous myths that go far deeper. In a study conducted in America, 14% of adults under the age of 35 believe that wearing sunscreen every day is more harmful than direct sun exposure. And in another poll of those aged 18 and 26, it found 28% didn't believe suntans cause skin cancer, and 37% said they only wore sunscreen when they were nagged.
Sunscreen is literally the best thing you can do for your skin, and anyone saying otherwise is absolutely peddling false narratives.
It is concerning to see people getting misinformation about sun protection, because we know that sunscreen is safe to use and it's really tightly regulated.
But experts are hopeful that trend won't be coming to our shores.
We have grown up with the sun-safe messages for decades and decades, and more recently now it has become cool to actually wear sunscreen and to practice sun safety.
While sunscreen is important to stay sun safe, it's just one thing you can do to stay protected, and that includes putting on a hat, wearing a long sleeve shirt, sliding on some sunglasses, and finding shade where you can.
So everyone in Australia should be taking precautions.
The consequences otherwise are potentially deadly. Han Nguyen for 10 News First.
North America's biggest city is facing scorching heat waves and severe drought. Any day now, Mexico City could even run out of water. Our very own meteorologist Josh Holt has the details.
Good evening. Well, Central America has been absolutely baking over the past few weeks, battling drought and also record-breaking temperatures. And all eyes, as you can see, have been on Mexico City, feeling the full force of Mother Nature, seeing record-breaking temperatures over the past couple of days. Over 40 people have lost their lives already, and over 150 monkeys, thanks to the extreme heat, all being caused by a big heat dome across Central America currently. A lot of people are saying, well, this is because of El Nino. Well, it's not. El Nino during winter actually brings above average rain, which hasn't happened. This is primarily due to climate change, and we can expect this situation to continue to unfold. In fact, we are thinking sometime in June there is a possibility Mexico City could run out of water. Moving into the rainfall across Australia over the next few days, Eastern Australia in particular expecting quite a bit of wet weather activity. Looking at the capital city forecast, Brisbane a shower or two tomorrow, sunny skies in Sydney and Melbourne.
New research shows threatened shark species are being sold within Australian fish markets and shops, mislabelled as flake. The Macquarie University study has been seized upon by the nation's Marine Conservation Society, who argue we need better protections. The study showed 80% of the shark fillets tested were mislabelled, and just under 10% were from 3 endangered species: the scalloped hammerhead, green-eyed spurdog and school shark. Well, it was so nice it happened twice. The phenomenon known as a cloud waterfall has been spotted again, this time in central China. Caused by a large amount of fog moving over the top of cliffs, this dense body of air acts a lot like water, hence the nickname. They are only a rare sight and only form at specific altitudes and temperatures. They require people to get up very early to capture them before they disappear. Well, up next on 10's Late News, a boat full of fun for these people raising money for a good cause. And unbelievable, the Aussie bloke who had a really good time. Welcome back. Well, now, how do you fuel up before a big event? The Queensland Maroons, it's indulging in a humble meat pie or 3. But these meat pies are famous, and I can say from personal experience they're worth a pit stop. Here's Matthew Carstoonan.
Well, for many sporting teams across many codes, there are many ways to introduce and to sort of shake those pre-game jitters. For the Maroons, it is a good old meat pie. And for more, I'm joined by Angela Coughlin from Yatla's Pies here in Queensland. good evening. First and foremost, how exciting they're back again.
Oh, yeah, no, it's amazing. They come through every year, and the customers and staff really enjoy it.
How many pies do they get? I mean, they're a big team and they're fully grown men.
Oh, yeah, no, a couple of pies. We've known a few to come and grab a whole family custard tart just for themselves. That's a tradition for one of the players. I won't name names. But, yeah, no, it's great that they come through, get a couple of $100 worth of pies, fill their bellies up, go and win a few games.
And do you think this is the secret to their success? They've done so well in so many years.
You know, I don't want to jinx things, but I do believe so, yes. Yeah.
And do you think maybe we could name a pie? Daily Cherry Evans comes to mind with the cherry pie.
We can give it a shot. Anything's possible.
It's safe to say as well, this place has been adorned with Maroons material, ready for the game?
Oh yes, absolutely. We're firm supporters here at Yatla Pies, and yeah, we like to pop the decorations up early and encourage all the team to come through and the customers to support them.
There you heard it. Thank you, Angela. The secret is in the pastry here at Yatla's famous pies between Brisbane and the Gold Coast, a tourist favourite. Not so good news for me, a Blues fan, but good luck to both.
Well, have you ever wondered what it feels like to fly? These athletes have got pretty close. Cliff divers combined death-defying heights and acrobatic skill to soar through the air, putting their talent on display at the first event of the Red Bull World Series. The champions diving from almost 30 metres and managing to make it look graceful. The Titanic, a high heel and a pirate ship aren't your typical boat designs, but at the wacky regatta, which takes place in Florida, they're par for the course. It's one of the more unusual races on the calendar, with competitors making their boats out of plywood and duct tape, then trying to stay afloat as long as possible. The event raises money for local veterans and hands out awards for speed, design and the least seaworthy boat. I'm going to apologise in advance for this one. The annual cheese rolling race in the UK is definitely not for the faint-hearted. But this year we have some really gooder news, with an Aussie emerging victorious. The annual Double Gloucester Cheese Wheel Race clocks in at more than 110 kilometres an hour. And this year it was caught by Dylan Twiss from Perth.
It was wild. It goes very quickly, but you're really in the moment. So at the same time, it does feel, you feel everything. So yeah, my first probably 25 metres I had my feet, then they disappeared and I was rolling. It was go for it and relax.
There's no topping these Aussie cheese greatness. And we are all savouring this tasty victory. That story was officially endorsed by Baby Jesus. I'm really sorry, I didn't write any of those. That is all the news that we have for you this Tuesday, the 28th of May. I'm Ursula Heger. Thank you so much for joining us on 10's Late News. We hope you have a great night.